Okay, everybody, we are live. Welcome. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. It's an honor today to welcome Travis Stevens to the show. He's a Judo Olympic medalist, and he's also a marketing strategist for Fuji Sports. Anybody that's spent some time in Judo or Jiu-Jitsu is well aware of the Fuji brand. Sorry, let me close my email out so it doesn't ding through this whole show. I met Travis recently. He did a judo seminar at Gregor Gracie Jiu-Jitsu here in Brooklyn, New York, and I was fortunate enough to attend that on a very snowy day. It was great though, because only about, the snow was so bad, only about 25 people showed up, and we got to intimately talk with Travis. It was a great seminar, and he said some things during the seminar that indicated to me that he at least had some awareness of success in business and the idea of scalability. I don't know if you recall, but what you were talking about replicable success in grips. That was one thing that you said that I was like, that's really important if you want to grow in just about anything. And then you said you have to give a little if you want to gain a lot. Which is also very true in business. And then that kind of prompted me to ask you later on. And I knew, like, on the surface that you were associated with Fuji in some way, but your title is marketing strategist. Is that correct?
Nah, jack of all trades guy, I guess.
We'll get to that later because I have some questions surrounding that. What I wanted to ask you first, because you've been successful at both. What came first for you? Interest in business or martial arts?
Martial arts for sure.
You were quite young when you started training.
Yep. I didn't really get into business until probably 2010-ish. That's when it really kind of took off for me.
And was it one of your own projects or working for another company?
Neither, actually. At the time, I was a full-time athlete. All I did every day was wake up and think about different ways I could hurt other people. And I started a jiu-jitsu school just because Jimmy and where I was at, they already had a judo program. So I thought jiu-jitsu would be a good way to, A, be able to train jiu-jitsu, B, stay relevant in the sport, and C, just kind of find my own path where I could make a little bit of extra money. And one of my students is now one of the co-founders of BJJ Fanatics. And that's what kind of kicked off my whole entrepreneurial, business mindset. We traded marketing classes and business strategy for jiu-jitsu. So I used to train from 7 a.m. to 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And then me and him would meet up at a local restaurant a couple days a week. And we go over Google ad accounts, Facebook ads, market strategy, different trends in the marketplace, different things people were doing that were big influencers in the space. And it was something that just really intrigued me, I guess. And from there, I just started building funnels, building websites, doing a lot of drop ship stuff. I was at Tokai University. For those of you guys who don't know, it's one of the major universities in Japan, one of the top ones. And I was there for 3 weeks training. That was when I built my first website, built Google Ads, was drop shipping products bought and sold from China direct to consumers, and made $2,500 in a weekend.
Wow. So you're
I was just
grassroots hustler.
Yeah. I had all that free time, right? I was in Japan. They only worked out one time a day, plus whatever gym and running I wanted to do. I had massive jet lag, so I was up at 5 a.m. So I worked from 5 a.m. to noon, had lunch, went to the gym, went to practice that night, and that was kind of my routine.
And you said that was 2010-ish, about 10 years ago. Appears we have a little bit of bad connection. Give Travis a minute to sync back up with us here. All right, we'll bring him back in. Just a little union break, right back at it.
Yeah, my one next door, and it's just the judo school is right upstairs, my studio's downstairs, and my computer likes to connect to both, so I just had to shut it off.
No problem. Give me just a second. It made a couple things reset for me. All right. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
All right, great.
Should have no interruptions now.
Okay, cool. No problem.
Say
that again.
User error on my part.
No, it's all good. 1 second. I got to check one more thing here really quickly. That's good. That's good. That's good. All right. So right before it kind of cut out, I was just asking, that was about 10 years ago when you were in Japan, and that was kind of the start of things for you.
Yeah, I hit around 2010 time frame when we started like having all those conversations. I didn't build that first funnel though until, man, like, what was it, 2015. So we were having conversations for like years on end. Like, I remember when he made his first video in 2008 for BJJ Fanatics. I was around for the conversations on BJJ Super Deals, for those of you guys who don't know. And I remember the conversations from BJJ Super Deals to BJJ Fanatics, and like the pluses and minuses to all of those. So I've had a lot of insight to a lot of people who are really successful in that industry. And the co-owners of BJJ Fanatics, they have other types of businesses other than BJJ Fanatics that they're very successful in. So hearing just different thoughts, ideas, and how they think and how they process information, it's always been a learning curve, and it's experience that I really enjoy even till this day, having those types of conversations. I would actually rather have those conversations than anything having to do with martial arts today. Like, that stuff kind of bores me.
Yeah. You're in good company then, because it's kind of the same. I mean, I could go either way. I love to talk about jiu-jitsu and fighting and stuff, but less people fight, more people are into business, so I end up having the business conversations just more often because of the population and people's adversity for getting punched in the face. I don't seem to mind. I started MMA classes at Enzo's in September after 6 years of jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and Muay Thai. And I was like, all right, maybe it's time to kind of put these together. And I felt like I knew something, and I quickly learned I didn't know shit. And I got punched in the face a lot. And then the goal was like, okay, I got to keep coming back just to reduce the amount of times I get punched in the face.
Yeah.
So, good experience. And I do get punched less. I have a little shiner right now, but it's not too bad. That's really fascinating, interesting that you just like jumped into like building funnels and websites and stuff. Did you have prior experience? I know on your LinkedIn profile it said that you come from the school of hardships.
A zero experience. I got thrown out of college because I was too stupid, barely passed high school, like no experience. But I do have a desire to learn. It's just I have to be interested.
Yeah.
And then once I'm interested, I'll go right down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it sounds like it. To go from zero to build, like, I still don't know how to build a funnel, and I've been in business for like 20 something years. It's quite fascinating to me. And I didn't realize too that you had such deep roots with BJJ Fanatics. It's Bernardo, and what's his partner's name? Is it Mike?
Mike and Mike. Two Mikes.
Oh, it's two Mikes. Okay.
Yeah, it's two Mikes.
So you linked up with one of those guys, and they had the business and marketing background, and kind of went from there. And then at what point did you create the association with Fuji? Because now it all kind of makes sense. Like there's always like in the studio with the Fuji mats and the Fuji logo, and all these things are interconnected. That's amazing.
So I was always sponsored by Fuji, even throughout my judo career, right? So I've known the owners for a long time. And when I decided to retire in 2016, the question is like, what do I do?
Hmm.
I didn't want my sole focus to be attributed to a jiu-jitsu school. It's not something, again, it sticks into that martial arts realm where like, it just doesn't excite me. And even jiu-jitsu to some degree just doesn't excite me. It's like a fun hobby.
Hmm.
It's not what I want my profession to be, right? So I sat down with the owners and I was like, look, like they didn't really have a position opened at the time, but I was like, look, here's what I can do for you. And we sat down, we found some like odds and ends and stuff that I can do. And then I sat in on a couple of meetings, took a couple of things, and then now I'm overseeing all of the market strategy for the company, as well as product design and development, and a little bit of like the inventory management with the vendors.
Hmm. Product design, and I like just imagine you like yanking on like 1,000 lapels a day, just checking their checking their sturdiness. How are you? And can you be more specific and like elaborate on that?
So there's two types, right? There's the product design from like a graphic standpoint, where we come up with different flavors and different styles. And then there's like the R&D side of it, where we're actually conceptualizing new pieces of equipment and how they can modernize the martial arts space, specifically in judo and jiu-jitsu. Like we released a gi that we call the Flow Tech. It has mesh paneling in the crotch and in the armpits just to provide breathability with a lightweight fabric. That one took a while to get because finding mesh that the tatami and the gi doesn't just like eat up, that was a challenge.
Yeah.
We have a 3D cut coming out that's 100% three-dimensional. It includes a rounded shoulder so that it's got a better competitive feel. So there's no extra fabric in the slack. So when people are using like armpit grips or pocket grips, or looking to wrap a lapel up around the body, like there's no extra fabric there. So it's got a 3D build to it. That one took about 2 years to finally get to like dial in on where to cut the fabric and go from there. We did a little bit with mesh fabric again. So we have 100% mesh rash guard. It's called our ProTech right now. Thinking about changing the name because we want to make sure people understand what it does, and it's got a lot of breathability. It's got a lot of flexibility in comparison to like a typical rash guard. And it also provides, if you're into no-gi, you understand how slippery people can be. The mesh fabric, because of the texture, it actually provides a little bit more grip. So now you can maintain, I guess better control would be a way I would put it with your training partners, and, have a solid grip when it comes to like body to body contact.
Yeah. Yeah. I got one recently. I bought one a couple months ago, and I haven't used it that much, but I'm actually a big fan. I don't know if you saw me earlier. I gave the Fuji logo a shout. So the school that I started at, which was one of Stuart Carroll's schools. Are you familiar with him? Do you know Stu?
Mm-mm.
Oh, see, he was.
I might if I recognize him.
Yeah, he was one of John's black belts, and he was around Henzo's for quite a long time. He only used Fuji gis and shorts and rash guards and everything at his school, so got very familiar with it there. And then they unfortunately closed during the pandemic, and a bunch of us were orphans. And I tried a bunch of different gear out, and at the end of the day, I just enjoy Fuji. I just like the way it feels. The gis are super sturdy. I've got some just regular, blue Fuji gis that I've had for 7 years, and the little color fade, but in terms of like wear and tear, they're as good as new. It's great stuff.
Yeah, we don't cheapen out in our design and the cuts and fits of our gis like a lot of vendors do. A lot of brands do.
Yeah, I've seen guys. I mean, I've trained with guys that have other brands, and like the knees are wearing out in like no time. And I'm like, is this thing made out of paper mache? Like, what do you have?
Yep.
So, I big advocate for the old, saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
and at Henzo's too, they for the most part I think exclusively use Fuji stuff, and again service me quite well there. You kind of mentioned something along this line a minute ago when you were talking about, not wanting to be like one dimensional with just like opening a school and kind of being stuck just in this like jujitsu job. I first became familiar with you via a John Danaher interview where someone was asking him, are there people that are equally skilled in, jujitsu and judo at the highest level? And he mentioned you as one of the few people that he was aware of on the planet that could compete at the elite level. And he even went so far as to say, in judo, in gi jujitsu, and no gi. Are you familiar with this interview?
Mm-mm.
Oh, so it's just like some old YouTube clip. It's a little dated, but that was the first time I kind of became aware of you. And it's been influential on me, and I like kind of take the same approach, just minus the judo. Or like I just, I know my judo sucks. It's something I want to work on, but I just have very little experience with it. And, most of my training is started on the ground. I'm just now starting to spend a lot of time on the feet. But just because of my, the instruction available to me, it's been more like jiu-jitsu and the gi, no gi, and MMA, like kind of understanding those three, at a high level. I'm 45, so I'm not competing, especially in MMA. But from an educational standpoint, I think it's really important, and I've taught before, and I want to continue doing that. I have interest in the school as well, but I'm curious that you've taken that approach. I mean, what Danner, pointed out was like the work ethic and the commitment it takes to build that kind of diversity at such a high level. Have you used a similar approach in your professional life? I mean, you kind of pointed out that you did. Is there any way you could kind of elaborate on that more, on some tactics that you used that so that you didn't get kind of bottlenecked into just doing jujitsu and being like a jujitsu instructor and marketing just your jujitsu school?
I actually never market the jiu-jitsu school. It brings enough money to pay the bills, and it gives me a place and people I like to work out with, and that's all that matters. Right? Like I never want it to be my primary source of income for any reason. Like I said, I don't want that to ever be my profession. But there's that saying of like, master the box before you leave the box. And a lot of people, they try to leave the box way too early. Throughout everything I do, I master the box. Like I get into arguments with people all the time, even from like a marketing standpoint, right? I had a business partner one time and we were building a website, and a professional walked in and just did like an audit of a website. And he's like, I would make the button green. And then my business partner like had a fucking shitstorm. He was like, it should be blue or red or whatever color he said. And I always defer to like people who know more than me. Again, that like, just master like the basics. Like don't change the basics. If that's what they tell you works, like I don't care if you learn it on YouTube, Instagram, wherever, like start there. Get started, get comfortable, get your flow down, get your workflow down, get your processes down. And then once you do that and you've done it enough and there's enough data coming in, now you can let the data make the decisions, right? Instead of, letting your own personal feelings of color choices, brand identity, this thing, that thing, influence the decisions. I remember when I first started taking on like product development design on like a graphic standpoint, we used to come out with these designs that like people on the team used to rip apart. They were like, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. We can't sell that. It's not going to do well for the brand. Can't release this, can't release that. And then one day I was like, I cut everybody off. I was like, nobody can see anything anymore. I said, I think up like a specific demographic that I feel controls a percentage of the marketplace. I design a gi specifically for the demographic. And if everybody else hates it, great. It's not for you. It's for the other people. Don't worry about it. The other people will like it, and it'll add a bigger customer base to our brand. You're not supposed to like everything. If we liked everything, we'd only have 100 people buying the brand. So I segment things out just based on the customer base, but it took a while of like getting the look and feel of everybody else's opinions, and you can really see their opinions really fit their styles. You know, some people say there's too much going on, too minimalistic, not enough going on. Like everybody has an opinion. And that's another thing I learned right away, that I never ask anyone's opinion ever about anything, because they'll always give it unless you actually have a legitimate claim and knowledge to base your opinion on that is influential, then I'll ask. But if you have zero experience in the field, I'm never going to bring it up. Won't even ask.
Yeah. Well, it's the battle of like emotion versus knowledge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you kind of pointed that out, and to correlate it to like the fight game, what happens when you start letting emotions come into your fight?
Like I would personally, like even in business, like I would rather watch a 30-minute YouTube clip on like, I don't know, doing something stupid like building a ClickFunnels page, right? To like, you know, sell an Amazon product with an Amazon like affiliate link, which is like, you know, kind of trashy marketing, but it is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would rather watch a 30-minute clip, recreate it, and fail than try to figure it out myself. Because I would rather do it their way and then try to make adjustments after having a good foundation of a starting point. Because, you know, it may not work for that niche. It may work for that guy's niche, but not this niche. And then we can start making adjustments. But I always have that solid foundation of a starting base to build anything off of.
Right. No need to recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea of I'm really big at probably adopted this philosophy a little too late in life. I could have had more success early on, but really being data driven, whether it's a technique, you know, in martial arts, you know, Jamie Crowder's always saying, you know, prove me wrong, because he's, you know, he teaches tried and tested and vetted approaches. And, you know, same with Mike Jarmillo. He's like, that's not real. It's not going to work. Like you always have to pit it against like your toughest, biggest, strongest opponents. Like, yeah, if it works on the blue belt, who cares?
And like, even for Mike's like statement, like as much as I 100% agree with it, it's okay to have like the fluffy stuff in there, you know, that like, I know it doesn't really work, but every once in a while, if I throw it in there, it's random enough where like it catches some people. It's worth doing. You know, a lot of times your A-level strategies will never work if, you know, they never fear like a B-level strategy. Right. And that becomes that, especially like in the stand-up game, like if you don't get the right reactions, you can't even throw the right combinations because your opponent's not reacting the right way. You know, so there is a degree of, you know, balancing like, or having an understanding of like, well, while it worked, I know I shouldn't trust it, but I'm grateful it worked.
I get that feeling often where I'm at. And it surfaces anyways, right? Because everybody has access to information. So it always kind of creeps in anyhow. So it has to be addressed at some point. I like your synopsis of that because it does come up. I think it's important to have the really strong foundational stuff as a centerpiece and a focus, but the other stuff is fun too.
Well, it's needed.
Yeah.
It's really needed. Without it, the foundation stuff never works.
Right.
Because everything can be blocked, everything can be countered. I don't care how good you think you are. Like if you don't make me think you're going left to go right, then it's never going to work. Even though going right never works. But you kind of got to go that way just so I play a little bit of defense or do something just so we can go the other way.
Well, it's like you said in the seminar, you got to give a little to gain a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And what was I going to say? Oh man, it just escaped me. We'll come back to that. I don't know if you caught the the interview recently that Lex Friedman did with John and Gordon Ryan and George St. Pierre. Did you see any of that?
I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah,
Those things are so
I mean,
long.
no, that I saw like little snippets. It's funny because Mark Theron asked in class one day, he was like, "Who saw the whole thing?" And nobody raised their hand. And he was like, "Who saw some of it?" And like all of us did. Like we all caught a little bit. But Lex asked John pretty early in the interview about his advice for young athletes, people coming up. And John said just plainly, he didn't connect it to jiu-jitsu in particular. He just said, anytime you want to succeed in a given environment, find undervalue aspects of the market that that work, but people just aren't really using. So like for one example for him was the leg lock game. And I watched a good portion of your interview with Lex Friedman, and you talked at length. Well, at first you talked about your disdain for leg day. Do you remember saying that? Like doing squats and stuff. I thought that was great because I never liked it much before, and I do it a lot more now. But yeah, definitely, I'd much rather do.
I bench more than I squat.
Yeah, I'd much rather do like 10 muscle ups than do squats. But I've adopted it just because as I get older, it's like there's some necessity to it. But you talked about creating like this wide stance hip rotation that nobody else was really doing, where you really like split your stance to get your hips under theirs as opposed to squatting. And that was in the interview, you pointed that out as a key to your success in judo. I'm curious if you can elaborate on that in terms of its relationship to business, and expand upon, kind of what John put out there.
Again, it wasn't something I came up with. I took that from a Japanese guy who was one of the best judo players pound for pound in the history of the sport. And he did it extremely well. And so again, like once you start doing it and then you start mastering it and it starts working, then you can take what they did and then mold it to your own. So the way I do it and the way I perform it now is nothing like the way he does it. Even though from an untrained eye looking in, it's the same thing. But our fundamental principles and the things we're looking for in order to pull the throw off, or what we need in order to enter, those things are all different. And so, but I started with his foundation and then molded it to my own body type and the division and the way that people fight me versus the way people fought him. Like it's all different. And the techniques that I have that correlate with it really well are different than the ones he had, because my body doesn't go for those throws. It went for the one, but not the others.
And what were some of the things? I mean, you pointed out, mastery, but that's an elusive term for many, especially these days. We live in a society of instant gratification, and I think we see less and less mastery. Can you speak to some of the things that you utilize to help you master and adopt that for your own self that could help somebody succeed in anything? Say they're, want to open a restaurant or start an academy or create a funnel and sell Chinese goods on Amazon. I'm not lowbrowing. I'm like a huge fan. These are some of the things that I should have been doing when I was selling weed. I should have been, that was my route. I was a drug dealer and I opened a restaurant. Didn't pay off the way I'd hoped it would.
You really have to have people who are, if you're ever going to succeed, you really have to have people around you that are intelligent. And you have to have people around you who are not, I guess, in a way, like a know-it-all. Like I run into more talented people coached by know-it-alls, so the talented person never grows. They get stuck in this wheelhouse of trust and belief that they're going to eventually make it, and they never grow as a person, as an athlete, and they're stuck in this realm, right? And so A, recognizing it is important. B, understanding that nobody knows everything. and you should be seeking out information all on your own, and trust in the idea that if there's somebody preventing you from seeking out more knowledge, they do not have your best interest at heart. They may have reasons to not apply the knowledge, but you still want it because it may not apply today, but it may apply 3 years from now. So don't not take in the knowledge just because it's not today. You always have to be seeking more knowledge from everywhere. I've learned more judo overseas, not understanding any of the language, than I probably have sitting down with an American speaking coach. Right? Because when we're overseas, like their judo is just at a higher level. So when I sit down and I watch the Belarusian coach work with the Belarusian athlete on like some Eastern European pickup technique from back in the day, like I don't have somebody here that can show me that. But I know enough about the sport and I'm smart enough to where I can sit down and I can see it, and you can understand where they're troubleshooting and why. Right? So then I'm gaining information and knowledge. I'm not just checked out sitting on the side. I'm always looking. I'm always paying attention and learning information from everywhere I can. Like if I'm grabbing water and I see an Olympic champion working with a high school kid trying to go over like a particular grip or a setup for a throw, like I'm taking that knowledge in and looking at it through the lens of like, what problem are they trying to solve and how are they solving it and how is it going to be applied in a live scenario? It has nothing to do with my judo, but it's knowledge, it's information. And at some point, if I'm ever stuck in a situation, I can reach into my back pocket, I can pull out that information, and there's that move that doesn't work on anybody else, but because I've never done it and I'm athletic enough, I'm strong enough, and I'm intelligent enough to apply it, I can do it without ever training it. And so a lot of people, they feel like, that's not for me. And they're stuck in this little box that can never grow because the people aren't intelligent enough to grow the toolbox. You know, even as Olympic athletes and world-class athletes, we were adding techniques and removing techniques from our repertoire every 3 to 6 months. And relearning and reapplying or finding new ways to apply different things based on the trends we were seeing on the competition scene. And it's the same thing in business and in everywhere else. Like you always have to be seeking out that knowledge. You always have to be learning it. It may not help your business today, but I guarantee you, had all those brick and mortar businesses went to marketing conferences and learned e-commerce because they were getting information, they wouldn't have been shooting themselves in the foot when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Because they would have understood how to make that pivot and transition. But because they didn't want to take in knowledge that they didn't think was, air quotes, relevant to their business, you just have to be a student of the game at all times and just go into it with that filter of, hey, this doesn't really fit me, but it's nice to know. And maybe at some point I'll be in a situation where I can pull it out of my back pocket and wow, it worked this one time in a million. But good thing I went and learned this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people, even in the martial arts space, like for jiu-jitsu, they're like a berimbolo player, right? It's like, I'm not going to learn how to pressure pass. And they just kind of, even when they learn it, they wave it off. Like they don't try to understand the intricacies of why it works and why it's technique. They just write it off as like, that guy's big, so he can do it. When in reality, that's 100% wrong. There's actual techniques and ways to move your body to create pressure and to be heavy regardless of your weight. So there's always going to be that back and forth and that struggle. And when I was younger, I had the luxury of having all of it. I had coaches that sought out knowledge on their own, that brought knowledge to me. And then I had the same coaches actually sending me out to get more knowledge. So everybody was always looking for more information for the best part of my career. Even Jimmy, all the way through my Olympic career, he understood that when I was at home, I wasn't getting the best training. He was sending me overseas. He was sending me to trusted coaches, trusted environments where I could work hard and still be safe. So again, that just that community aspect and being able to put it through a filter.
It's a common saying, you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So it's important to surround yourself with people that are elevating you and not like crabs in the bucket and pulling you down. And I've experienced what you said from like coaches and mentors. Just out of curiosity, do you know why like certain mentors they want to block certain channels of information from people that are, they're coaching, whether it's jujitsu or business or anything? Like, what would be the motivation? That's the part I haven't figured out yet.
A lot of it's pride, like they feel like if they're going to invest their time and energy and effort into anything, they want to reap the rewards of it instead of actually caring about the individual and like having their best interest at heart and saying, I'm going to take you as far as I can. And if you want to go somewhere else, doors open, you can leave at any time and you can come back at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, with all of my judo and my entire BJJ school, like it's not for everybody. You don't like it, leave. I don't care. You're not going to offend me any. I'll be here tomorrow if you decide to come back. I don't want people around me that are not having fun or not into my style of training or my style of teaching. Like that's not fun for me. That's not fun for you. So how about we just cut ties and you go your own way? Because I'm not leaving.
But if they came back and said, you know what, I really liked, it was really good, you would have
grass
open
is
arms.
Greener always on the other side.
Yes.
And most people just don't have enough experience to know what they're missing out on. I have more people who drive over 40 minutes to my school than people who drive 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people that drive 40 minutes have been to other schools and they've seen the level of instruction and they would rather drive the 40 minutes. But the people that drive 10 minutes, they would rather just go to a school 15 minutes away than come here. Just because they don't have enough experience of quality coaching and, an environment that makes them feel like they're improving and that they're supported.
And so it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
There has to be commitment on both sides. Like for someone to come in and take your class for like 2 months and be like, this is garbage, that they're kind of shortchanging themselves. And
I lose a lot of people too, just because I refuse to coach people in competition. Personally.
What do you mean by that?
I will never go to a jiu-jitsu competition and coach anyone.
Oh, gotcha.
Period. Not going to do it. Not worth my time.
Yeah. So they want you to like corner them.
Yeah, not happening.
Yeah.
I don't even put up tournament flyers. You guys want to figure it out, go figure it out. I don't care. I've had people that have won the worlds in the Pan Ams. I've had people win the worlds and Pan Ams from my gym. Like, I'm not preparing you guys. You guys can either train the way we train and believe that you're going to be ready, or you can go figure it out on your own. I don't care.
Right.
Not my problem.
That's great. I love that. I do. I appreciate that.
Going back on that point that we had before, an easy way to kind of, I guess, figure out if somebody's really got your best interest at heart, or they're really supportive of like what it is you're trying to do. They never have anything negative to say really, as much as they come with solutions to a problem. Like if you say, I want to be a world champion, and they're like, you can't do it for this reason, that reason, this reason over here, they don't have your best interest. But if they're like, okay, when are you going to start waking up at 5 a.m. and start training before work? When are you going to go to the gym? Are you going to be able to do jiu-jitsu 3 times a day? And they just start asking questions that are relevant to the prerequisites of winning a world title. So just when you're out there trying to do stuff and you're trying to figure out like who's really in your corner, just start asking people and presenting things and seeing what types of things they come back with to see if they're really supportive of what it is you're trying to do.
Fantastic. I remember what I was going to ask you earlier, because it just keeps circling up. It seems to me that whether it's business or martial arts, you are a student of human behavior. Like if you're creating funnels, you're definitely trying to predict human behavior. And you were talking about it, like sometimes if you want to go right, you got to go left because you know he's going to go right, even though you'd rather just get him to go right. So you have to set up these almost like booby traps to get them to make predictable movements. Would you say that's something you're also, are you cognitively aware of your interest in that, or is it just something that happens and I can see it?
I guess it's more of like an interest in the unrealized trends of people, right? Like, you know, can you wake up in the morning and not scroll Instagram? Right? Like that's like a habit that most people don't realize they have. They think it's like a conscious choice, when in reality it's like a forced habit that like there's something internally inside of you telling you to open it up and do it. And that's probably a bad example, but even in martial arts space, like my quarterfinal at the Olympics is probably the best example I could give. That is probably the easiest to understand, because I was fighting the guy who was, I think, number 4 in the world at the time. And I had never trained with him. I had never competed against him. So this was the first time we were ever meeting on a tatami, period. I had never even touched his gi, never spoken to the guy. We just completely oblivious on the world circuit for 4 years, however that happened.
Yeah.
But I would watch him at some of these training camps. And when he would get tired and people would pressure him, he always did this like sumigaishi kind of like, I'm just going to fling him off me so I can get back to my feet and reset. And I realized he kept doing it. And he was doing it during specific situations where people were coming at him and he was getting a little overwhelmed. So then he would just bail as like, maybe I'll score, maybe I won't, but I won't get a penalty. So when I ran up to him in the competition, I was like, this is easy. All I got to do is push him, not get thrown. And the more I push him, the more likely he is to just fall on his back and I'll be able to pass his guard. And sure enough, like clockwork, he fell to his back, passed his guard. You know, I could have won millions of dollars if I was a betting man, because it was almost guaranteed that that's how that match was going to go. Because I went into it not trying to throw him. I went into it trying to pressure him and not get thrown. So the cards were in my favor. So those are the types of, I guess, trends and things that interest me, is just figuring out like how people are going to react after a certain period of time based on all their previous interactions.
You watched some tape from him, so you would.
Nope.
Oh no.
Never.
Well, how did you know he did the sumigaishi thing just from like?
Because I would see him at the training camps.
Oh, gotcha.
Working out with all the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just like, once I saw him on my side of the bracket, I was like, that's a win. We just scratched him right off the. Right off.
Love it. You said something similar on your interview with Lex, where you were talking about a guy that in like the first 3 minutes of a 10-minute round, he was like a beast. And you were like, but you noticed that like later on, he was a paper tiger. And you were like, I don't want to fight the guy. I don't want to fight the first 3-minute guy. I want to fight the last 3-minute guy. So that was your approach with like, Jamie says it all the time too. The number one rule in MMA: don't lose. Like, don't get knocked out, because you can't win if you've lost. So pushing through that difficult onslaught, don't get thrown, you know, just bear down. And then you find a much less resistant opponent. I feel like the pandemic in terms of business exposed a lot of, you know, people in business, their aptitude for adversity. And you see, I mean, how many businesses, especially in New York City, just folded immediately, you know, just at the first sign. Like, nobody knew what was going to happen, but like so many people just like right away were like, we can't do this. Maybe, I don't know. I know a lot of people were like, had, you know, debt, and maybe things were not in their favor going in. So this was like the final thing.
Just really, really exposed those business practices that, you know, you think are common sense, but like common sense is not so common.
Yeah.
You know, like for all those jiu-jitsu schools and judo schools that, you know, got closed down, like it makes you wonder how great your customer service really was, and like how much you really helped support these people, and how much you were able to really, you know, influence their life and change them for the better. You know, like I understand some people canceling because like they were laid off, other things were happening, but if you were charging $150 a month like an average jiu-jitsu school does, like those people, you know, to be a part of a community aren't going to just give it up just because of $150.
Yeah.
You know, all those schools that were, you know, on easy street because they were out of YMCA's, Boys and Girls Clubs, you know, and all of a sudden they realized that no, that could be taken away from you at any time, and it is now. Now you guys don't have anywhere to go. You know, they're all regretting those decisions that they've been told for years about customer service. You know, it's not about winning medals, it's about the people's journey, it's about improving them as humans, it's about the community aspects, you know, being able to provide value to them for what they're paying. And if you really provided value, your students stuck it out, just like you did. You know, same thing for any business, right? Like people would have kept it open. And a lot of businesses who had those good, healthy business practices, they flourished or at least maintained. You know, they survived because they had a customer base that was willing to support them.
And the moxie just to continue in the face of the adversity. Yeah. I mean, I think they're both super valuable. And like, honestly, like I've opened a bunch of businesses over the years, but my restaurant where I'm sitting right now is kind of the, you know, the centerpiece right now, the thing I have the most focus on. And I started training. We opened at the end of 2015, and I started training like summer of 2015. So like right before it opened, and I would have burned this place to the ground 10 times over. Shit, but the pandemic has not even been the hardest thing for us. You know, it was not easy, but it was the first year. The first year was like a pandemic and a war. Oh wait, we're doing that now. It was really rough, and I was like 6 months into, you know, a year into training. I got my blue belt. You know, the restaurant had only been open like 6 months when I got my blue belt. And I'd gone through some shit in training and like learned a lot about myself. And I definitely would have just like walked away from this so much and never would have made it through the pandemic without that martial arts kind of mindset. And I started this show right before that, but right before the pandemic as well. So I was kind of like well into jiu-jitsu when I started the show. And at first it was just like a show about entrepreneurship, but I realized like, and this is an interesting question for you too, because you've been in contact with so many martial artists through your career. I just found there were so many guys that trained jiu-jitsu that were entrepreneurs. There's just something about like the chaos of it all and making sense out of it all, and guys that love adversity that are attracted to both. Have you noticed that correlation?
I think the people that succeed the most in jiu-jitsu have that desire for competition. And that doesn't mean that you compete in the sport, but it just means you have something inside you that is driven in a competitive nature, right? And a lot of people, they, you know, even for like the non-entrepreneurs, they feel like they can't compete in business. Like if you're an accountant, you're an accountant. If you're a sales rep, you're a sales rep. And you kind of just, you go through like the daily grind, and all of a sudden you step out onto the mats, and now you're able to compete. And it's whether you're competing with yourself, whether you're competing to like get the next rank or whatever it is, there's something there. And entrepreneurs have that like competitive desire to want to do better. And that's where people like really start to succeed, because in order to get to like the next level, you have to like want to get better. Like I have people that have been blue belts in my academy for like 6 years. And it's like, you guys just keep doing the same stuff. Not my problem. Yeah. Don't care. Right. And it's, you want to have that drive of like constant improvement, constant like fact checking, improving, trying things, and building that database of information.
And there's something about, I think that once you get to a certain level of both, I mean, businesses have to be creative, but in martial arts, after you get, you know, the foundations enough, you get to be somewhat creative, right? It's like certain techniques really suit you and the way you get into them. And you know, it is martial arts is an art, so you have that that
If you were
ability
going to make a
to
correlation between the two, right? The foundations of business, regardless of your business, are pretty straightforward, right? And then it's the same thing in martial arts. And then you get into like the toolbox of martial arts, right? And that's no different than I'm going to take the foundation of business, the foundation of martial arts, and then I'm going to create my own toolbox. And the toolbox is geared towards your business plan, your market strategy, whatever it is to grow. That doesn't necessarily work if you're trying to do a different type of business, because they're different toolboxes that require different things, but they all need that solid foundation. And it's the same thing in martial arts. That's when you get to that like identity that you get to create in martial arts, just like in business. What type of business practices are you going to have? What identity are you going to create in the marketplace? Same principles. And you know, I was fortunate enough throughout my martial arts career to never have one identity, because I was injured so much throughout my career, but I never wanted to stop training. I learned a lot of different toolboxes. So I can do judo like the Japanese, I can do judo like the Russians, I can do judo like the French players from all over the place, because I can play their style as well as their counters, just because I'm a little bit of like a jack of all trades, because I like that learning process, gathering all that information.
So do you accredit injuries to helping you get to that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was taught
to train to not want to stop.
Yeah, I was taught to train through injuries too. I mean, if they were like catastrophic, obviously, but yeah, I tore my MCL, tore my meniscus. I had fucking Lyme disease, like everything, and I hernia surgery, and I just didn't stop because one, I think you, like you said, it takes a certain person that just has that drive. Yeah. But I was told the same thing, like you're gonna find new things, like come in fucked up, like that's the best time, because
there's always something you can do to improve.
What's that?
Always. There's always something you can do to improve.
But it forces you to, where when you feel great, you're like, oh, I don't have to improve. I can continue doing the same bullshit I've been doing and get away with it on the blue belts, and everything's fine. But you really have to rethink and your focus. I was training with MMA fighter the other day that was injured. She's got a fight coming up, and just the look on her face was more menacing because she was so concerned about her injury. But it like scared me. I was like, you look different, and she did quite well. It was really amazing, and I complimented her at the end. And I definitely think business is the same. I mean, the pandemic was like you just got like the Johnny just swept the leg in Karate Kid, and Mr. Miyagi was not there to do the and you had to continue. You had to fight, and like I fucking learned so much in the last 2 years. Like you said, there were a lot of bad business practices, and like in the restaurant industry, like horrible practices. And I'd done this for a long time. I didn't come in cold, like you said. I worked within the box. I worked for franchises. I worked for a bunch of other companies, and we finally felt like, okay, we can do this now. We still got our asses handed to us, just royally. It was awful, like lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars, just on stupid shit. But those were the things that made us grow and see. But we just on all these stupid practices, and then when everything shut down, and you were forced to like face your customers like mano a mano and be like, this is what I can do. What would you like? And you really like hash through it. I was like, so I don't need, I mean, it saved us so much money. And we were just like participating in all these things. It was just like industry standards. Guys would come through, everybody does it. And you're like, okay, I'll do it. It's just like you go into a martial arts school and they're like, everybody does berimbolo. You got to berimbolo. You don't have to. You really don't have to. You should learn how to not get your back taken, which is a foundational thing. But yeah, it helped us. It helped us so much. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you too, because you were talking about toolboxes, social media. What's your take on that? I mean, you obviously use it for certain things because I see you in it. But there's a lot of hate on social media, and in terms of just a marketing approach and usability for your business, what are your personal thoughts on it?
Oh, that's a scary conversation.
I got it. I finally got you like I got you on the left foot. Now I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're far away.
Um, you have to make sure that there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to social media. I mean, obviously there are some things you really don't want to do unless it's what you want to do, but whatever your market strategy is, you just have to make sure that you have the resources and the wherewithal to follow through. And that's where you have to figure out what you can live without and what you can't. Like if any of you ever go to like Fuji Sports is like social media, all we do is post our products. We don't have a like community aspect to our brand per se. Like most people would tell you is like a must have. Everybody does it. Create a Facebook group, create this, create that. Can't do it, people. Like, I understand you guys tag us. I understand you would like it to be shared. I understand you emailed it in. I can't share it because if I do it for you, I have to do it for everybody. I don't have the resources to do it for everybody. Therefore, I'm not doing it for you. As nice as it would be, I can't do it. And then every once in a while, we have like a particular story or something that like is worthy of being shared. Like Shanji's retirement at ADCC, right? It's his last match ever. He's one of our athletes. We're going to be there and we're going to support it and we're going to promote it. We had another guy that's been a customer of ours for maybe like 4 years now. He hasn't competed in 4 years and won Europeans. It's like, it's a very special like set of circumstances with very select people that we would even entertain the idea of publicizing it out there because of the resources that we have. We're not a company like, what's a good one? Like Kings, who basically is a sponsor of the IBJJF, pays all the top athletes, and then they just take all the competition footages and call it marketing.
Yeah.
Like that's not what we do. And that's not the customer base we cater to. We cater towards the quality of our products, the customer service, and making sure that everybody gets what they need. And the designs that, people like and cater to because it fits their personality and their traits. And that's it. We stick to that message, and it's very simple. It's not flashy. It's kind of boring, but it's what we have the resources for.
And if it works,
yeah, which is completely different. Again, same team, same guy who does it, the Fujimax side, where all we do is post people's gyms.
Yeah.
But again, like I get quality images of people's gyms all the time because they're so proud of it. They take the time to like, let's make sure the lights are right. Let's make sure the camera's right. Like, let's take some time to show all the different angles because they're proud of the most expensive thing they'll probably ever purchase in their life, right? Apart from their house, it's probably the most expensive thing. And that one is community based, right?
Yeah.
All we're doing is posting like the accomplishments these people have about even throughout the pandemic, taking $50,000 and opening up a gym in their space and like taking that leap of faith into the marketplace to change people's lives. So again, same person, two different companies, two different avenues of thought because it's what the companies have to offer.
That's great talking about predictable human behavior because my last question was going to be about Fujimax and affiliates, and like without even teeing it up, you nailed that one out. So I train at Henzo's, flagship headquarters, and they're big Fuji mat users, and Shanji just opened a school in Austin, right?
Austin, yep.
And assuming he's using Fuji mats there. So what's the affiliate program like? Like, say hypothetically, someone wanted to open a school and they needed to get mats. How does it work with Fuji?
All they got to do is go online. They can purchase what they need right from the website, or they can email in if they need more customization than like, I just need 2,000 square feet of mat.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really as customizable as people need it to be, or as basic as people need it to be.
And then there is some sort of like almost like marketing support for a school that chooses Fuji. You were saying that part of that branch of the company will in some way highlight where their mats are being used.
Yep, because most people send those assets right back to us.
Yeah.
You know, thanking us for helping out with the design, getting them off the ground. You know, there's a lot of like our sales rep and our support system to make sure that like the install goes well, the delivery goes well, the look and feel is exactly what they want is done. So there's really a camaraderie there to make sure that the customer is left with his vision or her vision of what they want to be presented into the marketplace. Again, not my vision. Some of the gyms I see are ugly. I'm like, I don't even know what you were thinking when you did that, but you shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that. But you know what? If that's their marketplace and those are the people that they want to cater to, then I'm all for it. Like, you want to do black wall pads, black mats, dim lights, and play rock music, like, hey, go for it.
Interesting.
That's all you.
Yeah. And then as far as gis and rash guards and shorts, like, you know, like I'm just thinking hypothetically, like if I was going to open a school like tomorrow, I need to get mats and I'd need to get gis. I know I could just like purchase mats, and I could probably just tell people go buy like, you know, plain Fuji gis and you know, rash guards and shorts.
We try to help our gym owners out. You know, we give them special pricing so that when they're outfitting their students, it becomes a profit center for them, right?
That's what I was asking.
They get the B2B account, the wholesale account on their site, and they can order direct. They get free shipping over a certain rate to be able to stock products. That way, when students are coming in, they can build those gear packages internally for their students. Hopefully, they have like a sign-up fee request that's like $300. You know, waives the first month down payment. They get a free gear package. It costs them probably $80 to get the gear package of the belt and the gi and the rash guard. And then all of a sudden, like now they're up to $50 on month one for a new student, whether they stick around or not, like that's their responsibility. But hopefully we can turn a profit center for these B2B people and the gym owners, you know, and help them with getting set up so that they can start turning a profit quicker. And then gyms that are a little bit more established or have a little bit more of a bankroll or a customer base, you know, we have that whole custom department program where it's like you can either hire a designer or send me your logo and I'll design you with aesthetically over the thousands of gyms that we've done, what customers usually purchase from gyms. But again, they know their customer base. Do they like flashy and a lot of stuff, or do they like simplistic and modern?
Yeah.
Like there's kind of like the Henzo Gracie look, which does a little bit of everything. And then there's the AOJ look where it's like, I'm going to charge you $400 and put nothing on it.
Right. Just a plain white gi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's their customer base.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I think, you know, between their school and I mean, Gregor's new places, was that your first time going to Gregor's new academy?
Since it's been like expanded. Yeah.
God, what a gorgeous. I interviewed him there the first week they opened up last summer. And I just felt so special being in there. I was like, you know, Henzo's is great, but it's like, you know, doesn't look like that. You don't have a view of the water. You know, you get a view of
this is
water.
Like walking into a really nice spa, like you're getting ready for like a manicure, massage.
Right,
There's gonna be like little tricklings of water everywhere.
Oh,
it's really a gorgeous facility.
Yeah. And Rodrigo is like, would you like a coffee? Would you like an espresso?
Yeah.
How about a tea? It's funny. I've kind of seen a trend. Do you know Mateus Lutes? He's one of Marcelo's black belts.
Yep.
He opened a school. His crazy story, man. They signed the lease in January of 2020 in Mineola, New York, Long Island.
Well, that's a terrible time to sign a lease.
Right. And started construction March 1st. So there are 2 weeks.
Even a worse time.
Nobody knew. And all this shit went down. And God bless him and his wife, Alicia, because they're just young. And, you know, he's competitive and so is she. And they were like, fuck it. And they went for it. And they opened in May of 2020. And I went out there to train because I was trained in the craziest places. I trained with at the FDNY Wrestling Club, which was in the community center of a project building in the South Bronx. It's like the room that hip hop was born in. And we show up, there's like this judo guy, he was quite good, running the class. And we had to go into like the closet of this community room and pull out these 4x4 interlocking mats. There were probably like 60 of them, probably had like 1980 staff on them. I mean, these things were never clean. We just worked out in the craziest places. I worked out we were training in a motorcycle shop because the guy lost his school, but he worked on bikes, and the bike shop owner will let him throw the mats down after the showroom closed during the day, and just like weird shit. But my friend started training out at Royal at Mateus's place and went out, and another just like gorgeous school. So it seems like there's a trend in the East Coast. I know the West has kind of led that charge, but like nicer looking, more aesthetically pleasing. Like bathrooms are gorgeous. You feel like you're in a hotel. It's really nice. I mean, I don't need it, but my wife trains and my daughters train, so that definitely, they'll come along for the ride. If I'm like, wait till you see the bathroom, they're like, okay, we'll go train. If I'm like, we're gonna go learn some ass kicking techniques, they're like, yeah, I don't care. But if I'm like, wait till you see this bathroom, they're like, let's go, we'll get lunch after. It's great. So basically, like the B2B program is a form of community for it's like a marketing community, but for specifically for people that are like meeting you in the middle and becoming almost like a partner.
I'm hesitant to not call it a community because there's no platform in which they can all communicate together.
Gotcha.
We've had conversations about starting like a private Facebook group for them. That way, if they ever wanted to trade like marketing strategies, business strategies, ways that they're communicating with the public that grows more students, huge wins that they've had as, school owners. Like I've heard some schools signing up 100 people a month, like insane numbers.
Yeah.
So being able to tell those stories, but again, resources.
Yeah. No,
I don't want to start it and not keep up to it.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing.
I'm a big advocate for that. I won't start something that I know I can't do for 5 years, 10 years. It's a disservice to everybody. Like even at the restaurant, introducing things prematurely that are going to peter out in 6 months. It's a disservice, I think, to everybody. So one of my biggest, we're going to wrap up now. I know you're a busy dude and you got other places to go. It seems to me like, going back to like what I asked you at the beginning, like the tagline in your LinkedIn profile, the school of hardships, and it seems like commitment and follow through, like no matter what it is for you is paramount to success. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you just can't ever stop.
Yeah.
You're allowed to fail. You're not allowed to quit, right? So fail as many times as you can, because then you're just finding all the different ways not to do it, right? As cheesy as it sounds, you're better off attempting it and failing than you are waiting for that perfect moment where that thing that was going to fail may potentially work, right? Just get through it. Just keep trying and just make sure you don't spread yourself too thin.
And gather information, right?
A lot. The more, the better.
Man.
You never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's an honor. Look forward to training with you again at some point whenever you're back in New York, or if I ever make my way up to Boston. It's really a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time out, coming on, and just sharing such great, valuable information with everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. The rest of you, I'll talk to you soon. Got some other great guests coming up in the near future. You'll hear more about that, and there'll be some micro content from this show coming out. Keep in touch through my social media, and you'll get to see it all. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Peace out.
Thank you.
My pleasure.